We've got some Pettersson rumors to talk about, from Marcus Pettersson to Elias Pettersson to... that's not a Pettersson, but we'll get into him anyway. Morgan Rielly of the Toronto Maple Leafs. Yeah, I guess we gotta talk about him too. But we have ourselves some PD rumors, from EP40 to MP3. Sorry, DPD, you're not included in this conversation today, because today we're diving into the latest on Elias and Marcus Pettersson, courtesy of RG.org, Marco D'Amico, and Rick Dollywall. So without further ado, let's dive into the Elias Pettersson trade discourse first, courtesy of this article posted by Marco D'Amico earlier this morning. Inside the NHL's scarce center market ahead of free agency. Now, don't get me wrong, there's actually a lot in this article that we can make videos about. Vinny Trocheck, Dylan Larkin, the new teams on Larkin's trade list, and then there's a conversation on Nico Hischier and Matt Barzal. But Elias Pettersson is talked about here. And this article will be linked in the description for your reading pleasure if you want to see the latest on Larkin, you want to see the latest on Trocheck, the Islanders, and more. D'Amico writes here, another name generating interest is Elias Pettersson. The Vancouver Canucks continue to emphasize patience throughout their rebuilding process, and newly appointed GM Ryan Johnson has made it clear that difficult decisions will be considered if they align with the organization's long-term vision. Pettersson's contract naturally draws attention. The star center, asterisk on the star there, carries an $11.6 million cap hit for another 7 seasons, making any potential trade one of the most significant transactions imaginable. Sources indicate Vancouver remains willing to listen to virtually every scenario as it evaluates its future. I've heard Pettersson is available, but that would likely require a team to take on the entire $11.6 million cap hit. Still, I feel the LA Kings, who have a ton of cap space and not too many assets to trade, would be all over this. And if Detroit can only net a futures return for Larkin, they have shown strong interest in Pettersson in the past. Any transaction would require Pettersson's approval because of his full no-move clause, creating another layer of complexity. Still, rival executives continue to monitor the situation closely. Now, this is not necessarily giving us anything that's brand new, per se. Like, okay, we already understood that Pettersson is available, but his $11.6 million cap hit is available too. That contract is not getting cut into 80% or 90% or whatever. Vancouver is not retaining on PD. LA and Detroit, yeah, these are the two teams that have been talked about the most when it comes to the Elias Pettersson trade discourse. What are the Kings going to do with Anze Kopitar out of the mix? What are the Red Wings going to do with Dylan Larkin out of the mix? The fact that there are so few centers available in free agency means the only ones you're going to be able to get are via trade. So that includes your Petterssons, your Larkins, your Vinny Trochecks, your Barzals, and maybe your Nico Hischiers, depending on who you ask. Elias Pettersson is one of many names that could get moved because there is demand. There is a demand for centers down the middle who can play an NHL quality game. And even though Pettersson is not an 11.6 quality asset anymore, he can still provide, let's say, 50 to maybe 60, 70 points even if he has a good year, all while providing stout defensive play and meaningful defensive contributions. There's enough value in Pettersson for another NHL organization to think of him as a worthwhile add, in my opinion at least. He's not that bad. So hearing that other NHL GMs are going to be paying attention to the Pettersson situation, and that there are conversations with LA and Detroit, it only makes sense. Plus, we've spoken about this before on the channel, but Pettersson's wife probably seems like the kind of person that would be interested in going to LA, like just tossing a loose fold out there into the universe. It does seem like something that would make sense in my mind. Whether or not the Petterssons would be interested in going over to Detroit, though, that's an entire other conversation, although to be fair, the Red Wings have had their history with Super Swedes as well. Vancouver ain't the only team that has benefited from the country of Sweden in the past. Now, speaking about Swedes and speaking about Pettersson, let's go over to the latest on Marcus Pettersson, MP3, as some of us like to call him here. Marcus Petey is 30 years old, 6'5", 174, making $5.5 million a year till the end of 2031. Admittedly, this contract is not bad. I'd even go so far as to say it's pretty good if you get a version of Marcus Pettersson that the Canucks did not actually get this previous season. He had 18 points in 82 games. However, he had 11 points in 31 games last year after being acquired from the Pittsburgh Penguins. Pettersson in this stint was actually pretty good, and I'd say that his $5.5 million was seen as a steal when you saw just how much money other players around the NHL were getting shortly after. This previous campaign, Marcus Pettersson was not great. He was fine, not really too standout worthy in any sense, really. But $5.5 million till 2031 for a guy that can provide relatively okay top four play in your back end, that's not the worst thing in the world. However, we did have ourselves some rumors earlier on this morning, courtesy of Sheng Peng. This is what he said on his podcast yesterday. He thinks that Marcus Pettersson is willing to be traded. Peng, of course, is a San Jose beat reporter, and he does stuff for the San Jose Sharks, so it was really interesting to see this report come out of California that Marcus Pettersson is motivated to move, he thinks. That's what he understood. I don't know that for sure, but it is what he said on his show alongside of Scott Wheeler of The Athletic. Rick Dhaliwal then replied to this Sheng Peng report on Marcus Pettersson saying, I contacted Marcus's agent Peter Wallen, and he says it's 1,000% not true. Wallen says Pettersson loves it in Vancouver, and he is thrilled to see what the new management crew will bring and lead them to. Marcus Petey is 1,000% looking forward to next season. Now, that, of course, is a pretty immediate shutdown of what would have been Marcus Pettersson wants out trade discourse. That was then quickly followed up. Marcus Pettersson's agent shoots down reports of his client wanting out of Vancouver. Man, let us have hope for 10 seconds that we can get out of all these dumb contracts that we signed. Why the heck do all these dudes want to stay? We don't want him in Vancouver. He's not welcome. Okay, so Canucks fans are not really feeling all too great that Marcus Pettersson wants to stay, but I guess that's what we have come to expect when thinking about certain guys on the Vancouver Canucks. I mean, Marcus Petey wasn't really moving the needle all too much last year, and to hear that he's actually excited to be a part of this organization, I'm gonna be real, that's like the first thing we've ever heard about Marcus Pettersson in a year, it feels. Like, we learned about Quinn Hughes relatively early on. Oh yeah, that guy wants out. He doesn't want to be here. We learned on Filip Hronek, oh yeah, he's committed to being here. He wants to be captain material. He wants to be a leader. He could be the next captain. We heard from Tyler Myers, oh yeah, that guy wants to be here, but he could get traded, and it's going to depend on his family whether or not he actually does get traded, and he got traded. We haven't heard anything about Marcus Pettersson up until now, up until Sheng Peng went out there and said on his podcast that, yeah, I think Marcus Pettersson wants to get traded. Don't know it for sure, but I understand that he's motivated to move. Only for the agent to come out there and say, nah, actually, he's 1,000% committed to Vancouver. Not that Marcus Pettersson was like a super relevant name to be talking about anyway, but still, kind of interesting update when you think about it. And finally, when it comes to defensemen around the NHL, let's talk about West Vancouver's Morgan Rielly out of the Toronto Maple Leafs, because reports out of Pierre LeBrun's newest article on The Athletic says that Rielly has given a list of teams that he is willing to accept a trade to. But the Vancouver Canucks are probably not on that list. So, yeah, sorry. Canucks fans that wanted to see Vancouver take on Morgan Rielly and his albatross of a deal, $7.5 million till the end of 2030, just as a cap dump, because even though he scored 36 points last year, Morgan Rielly's reputation in Toronto has gone down the toilet. This is not a guy that Maple Leafs fans are happy with, nor are the executives seeming to be happy with. The idea was Vancouver takes on Rielly, they bring back this hometown guy, he's a leadership presence, and he does all the things that we want him to do, and then he plays his contract out. And Vancouver maybe gets a pretty nice asset for taking on the deal. Doesn't seem like that's actually possible now. Rielly does not want to go to Vancouver, it seems. And his contract, $7.5 million, does have full no-move protection, so it's ultimately up to him, isn't it? With that said, you can let me know your thoughts in the comment section below. How do you feel about the latest on Marcus Petey, Elias Petey, and Morgan Rielly? It's speculation station here on the Lego Rocks 99 channel, and if you're a Canucks fan, I want you to let me know your thoughts in the comment section below. I hope you enjoyed this video, Trolls 99, and bye.